People like to be with other people, because while we humans do a lot on our own, the simple truth is that sometimes we're even better together. Which is why we're drawn to interact and connect in simple and powerful ways, to express our likes and loves and so much more. These are opportunities to share, to discover, and to inspire. It's where amazing things have the opportunity to happen every single day. More than just on Facebook, but on our growing family of apps and services. Bringing us together in ways that are both accessible and incredible, delivering more than just likes and views, but measurable value for people and businesses alike. This is the incredible power of connecting us all. And it's just getting started.
Okay. And one of the things that happens as part of that mission, part of that journey, is really the very large communities that we've been able to develop as part of that. And one of the things that we realize is it's not just the size of the different applications in the communities, but it's the different type of ways that people connect and communicate. And so if you look at something like the core Facebook application, that's 1.7 billion people use that every single month, and primarily that's people connecting with those friends and family, coworkers, those they know. You've got short-form communication, things like WhatsApp and Messenger with over 1 billion users each. You've got things like Instagram, where in reality people aren't connecting necessarily with the people they know, but they're generally following inspirational content. Most of the time it's highly visual. And we have lots of other different applications that are still in the works. But it's not just the size of these communities, we also look very closely at engagement. And so how much are we mattering as part of people's lives and the way that they're communicating and the depth of that communication. And so if you look at 66% of our users are coming back, the people that use Facebook are coming back every single day. Also, if you look at 90% of it are coming in on mobile devices, which is the way, I'm sure all of us here will agree, it's the way that people are communicating, and it's going to be even more so going forward. If you were to take a look at all the time spent on the internet, roughly 1 out of every 5 minutes is spent on a Facebook application or service. And if you look at it through a mobile environment, it's 1 out of every 4 minutes. And nowhere is it more pronounced than in the Philippines. 54 million Filipinos are using Facebook every single month. And no real surprise, it represents about 99% of everybody that's on the internet in the Philippines. And about 91% of all of those are coming in on mobile devices. So it's even more pronounced in terms of mobile usage than what we're seeing at the global level. And it's not just the mobile usage that is more pronounced. In the Philippines, it is all about messaging. There's more messages being sent. There's more friending going on. And what's also interesting from a statistical standpoint is people are spending roughly 70% more time on Facebook than they are watching TV. Now I'm going to talk about the 4 trends, four things that we're seeing. One is around digital transformation, then mobile, then video, and then I want to spend some time talking about value in driving our business. So let me first go into the digital transformation. And I think there was a very nice setup at the start of this, which is things are happening at an unprecedented pace. But it's happening, it's part of a bigger overall movement. There's many people that think that we're in the middle of what we would call the 4th industrial revolution. And if you think about it, if you go back in history, the first 3 industrial revolutions, it was all around building moats, big machinery, automation, steam engines, railroad tracks. In many respects, it became barriers to entry for people to enter. But if you look at what's happening now in the 4th industrial revolution, it's about connectivity. It's about connections. It's about bits and bytes. And what's fascinating is if you look at the companies that are involved in bits and bytes and the disruption that's going on. How well am I using that information to develop a better product, to better understand my consumer, to redesign my distribution flow? And what's fascinating is if you take a look at the top companies from a market cap perspective and how that's changed over time. Many years ago, it was all around how do I do oil and gas or offline infrastructure. But if you look at the top companies today, it's all of those that are built around mastering the bits and the bytes and the technology. This is, I think, a very telling quote for us, and that is, if you look at the average length of time that a company lasts in the S&P 500, the average length of time is about 15 years. And so at the end of 15 years, you're either acquired or you're gone. And again, that's just an unbelievable pace of disruption and innovation that's going on. I love this quote, which is from Jeff Bezos, which even Jeff, who's one of the people that are doing the disruption in many respects, even he acknowledges, he says, look, I understand that Amazon is going to be disrupted one day. I just hope that it's not in my lifetime. And we're really fortunate at Facebook because we get a chance to look at a lot of different industries. And in almost every industry, the story is somewhat similar. You have these big companies, the dominant traditional players, I call them A's and B's, which are competing against each other generally for single-digit growth. And then you have these disruptors that come along. I call them the X, Y's, and Z's. And they come from the bottom. They're typically doing something radically different that the big companies wouldn't normally think of. And what's fascinating is if you're part of the traditional companies, you're in a real dilemma because you don't know if these disruptors are going to come and take over your business or whether or not they're just going to flame out. I always like to use the case of General Motors as an example because this level of disruption, a lot of people will attribute it, well, that's just the technology space and things move quick in technology. It's happening in every single space. General Motors, one of the most traditional companies and categories in the world, right? They would get up 10 years ago and they would think about their competitive set. And when they thought about their competitive set was Honda, Kia, Toyota, Ford. That's what they thought about. And then along came electronic cars. And now suddenly your competitive set is Google, Apple, Tesla. And then what happens is the millennials come along. And the millennials of our time are no longer focused on car ownership as a rite of passage. It's really just purely transportation from A to B. That's all it is. And when you start to look at it through that context, suddenly your competitive set ends up being the Grabs of the world, the Ubers of the world, and there's countless startups in every single market around the world. And again, this is one of the most traditional companies on the planet, and just look at the level of disruption that they've gone through just over the last few years. And really, you're faced with three choices, right? You either have to figure out